Hey everybody, so today we're going to be doing kind of like a webinar about violations in the HR world of business, specifically talking about lawsuits filed with the EEOC. And so as we talk about this, there's many different types of discrimination that goes on in the workplace, and none of it is right. And unfortunately, it still does occur, but thankfully, due to organizations such as the EEOC, there is now a sense of protection and a true feeling of justice that could be given to these employees who have suffered through these discriminatory acts. So for this instance, we're going to be talking about a company that is named Monroe Incorporated. And just a little bit about them. They have 1,000 locations across the country. They're an automotive mechanic shop. And so recently they were ordered to pay $200,000 as well as other reparations to the employees that filed sexual harassment claims against the company. And there were multiple male employees, which is another thing to pay attention to, because usually, not all the time, but usually it's the female employees that experience most of the sexual harassment, sexual abuse things that happen in the workplace. But this time it was male employees. There was one more female employee, which I'll get to later, but right now there were multiple male employees that had been subjected to non-consensual sexual contact and even had to be shown graphical sexual images in the workplace without their consent. And this took place from their coworkers and even their supervisors. And they also charged Monroe with another lawsuit when there was a female employee who was being discriminated against due to her gender. And a little bit about her was she got called woman by her superiors and supervisors rather than her real name. And they made her do almost like secretary errands and fulfill their personal errands they needed to be done instead of her being able to do her actual job. And this was all done to her just because that she was a woman and they felt that she was beneath them. And both of these acts of harassment have both violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which, if you don't know anything about that, it gave all the employees a protection over discrimination based on sex, race, gender, religion, age, and specifically Title VII. And some of the consequences that this company faced due to these actions were they had to make sure that they had done special training on sexual harassment, and all their managers, supervisors were in the know with all this training and fully understood it. And then they also had to report any of their future complaints, discriminatory complaints, to the EEOC over the next 2 years. So a little bit deeper into this, you see, like I said before, you always usually hear about females experiencing these sexual harassment acts or sexual abuse, but this time it was male. And it's important to look at that because it really shows that there is more, and there goes more into it than what you would really expect, because like I said, everyone assumes it's always females, but there's actually quite a bit of male discrimination that goes on in the workplace. And a couple things to think about. What would you do if you're in this situation? Because I personally wouldn't know what to do. And I think it's important to know, as a business student, the numbers and rates of which these things occur and the complete process of handling these. One, if you were to work for someone as an organization such as the EEOC, or if your company itself is being in the middle of a claim for discriminatory acts and of that nature. And then just a little bit more other types of discriminatory acts that go on. There are acts of discrimination against people who have disabilities, which then violates the American Disabilities Act. And that basically ensures that people with disabilities are given reasonable accommodations unless those accommodations produce undue hardships. So basically, you cannot discriminate against someone on a disability when their accommodations that they're requesting are reasonable within your company. And another big thing too that we see with a lot of these are the acts of retaliation against the employees for filing those claims. And there have been instances where these employees have gone to the EEOC and filed a claim, but then once the company found out about the claim, retaliated against the employee, and such as firing them, suspending them, taking away their pay, their shift, their hours, anything of that nature, which then also violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So there's a lot of different ways that these discriminatory acts can go, and it's important to know each way you can be discriminated against, and if so, how to handle it, whether you are on the employee side of it experiencing it or the higher up side trying to handle the situation in the most positive way for you, your company, and your employees. And I think another big thing is making sure that each person knows, each employee, supervisor, manager knows your policies and understands the consequences if those policies are violated. And because being as transparent as possible will not only ensure that these employees know what can happen or what will happen if they do such unethical act, but also it covers your end of making sure that you expressed your feelings about this subject, your rules for it, policies. So then if it does get taken to the court of law, you may not win it, but you may have a better argument if you are completely transparent, as if compared to you didn't express all the policies, you weren't very open about it, or you tried to hide this act in order to keep the good public eye of your company. Because then if you do that, it just adds on and gives these people in the court of law a even better chance of winning their argument if you have done something to cover it up or retaliated against them or anything of that nature. So that's pretty much about everything for the EEOC Act, discriminatory acts, and kind of what they do. But I kind of want you guys to think about these certain things, and if you had family members or if you yourself were in these situations, how would you handle it? Or like if you were the employee, how would you handle being discriminated against like this? And also if you were the head of the company having to settle this in the court of law, how would you handle it? All right, thank you guys.